Welcome back, and now we start the program in earnest, and we're going to be looking at the justice delivery system and the reforms that are going on. They say that it's sometimes easier for for one to get justice in Nigeria than anywhere else in the world, and the Attorney General, Mrs. Alom Mokhtar, is making great strides in making sure that that statement is no longer true in Nigeria. But of course, all kinds of comments have been coming from practitioners in the industry, and we will have a number of them with us this morning to discuss this issue. And it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Fred Nzeakor, who is a legal practitioner. We also expect two other people to join us, and we have told you earlier this morning about the traffic jam on the expressway, and they are caught up in it, and they'll be joining us in the course of this segment. Thank you very much for coming, Mr. Nzeakor.
Thank you. Good morning.
Now, can we say that we have heard this said?
Yes.
That this whole reform is to victimize some practitioners?
That wouldn't be true from all indications. But there was a little slip in your intro. Alom Mokhtar is the Chief Justice of
CJN
of Nigeria.
Okay.
The Honorable Attorney General is Mohammed Bello Adoke.
Adoke,
yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I know it's all the slip. The reform is not in any way meant to victimize anybody. What I mean by anybody, both those who operate in the temple of justice as lawyers, as judicial officers, as justices, as magistrates, and those who approach the court at all levels to access justice. What I mean, the rest of Nigerian citizens, and both corporate citizens and natural individual citizens. There's no way the reform is aimed at attacking or affecting anybody's interest negatively. The reform is essentially meant to reform the system. Because there has always been this hue and cry about the terrible loopholes, about the terrible inconsistencies and nasty limitations in the administration of especially criminal justice system in Nigeria. The judiciary generally, justice system generally, both criminal and civil issues need reform, because this old saying that delay of justice is almost equal to denial of justice is still relevant up to today. And once there is such a delay in assessing equitable justice, it makes people to resort to self-help. It brings anarchy, it brings terrible chaotic situations, and all the springs you see here and there are tied to injustice.
So what would you say to those who have said that the electoral tribunals were just breeding billionaire judges?
Well, to some extent it is true, to the extent that the judiciary has been infiltrated by politics. And the easiest way of such infiltration is through electoral tribunals. Politics in the sense that the politicians themselves who want to access justice through the tribunal they are so desperate that they want the judges, the tribunal to obey their bidding. And how do they do that? They try to bribe the judges and the tribunal. And in the course of doing that, some judges, I agree with you, will fall. I mean, Honorable Justice Alom Mokhtar has said that. Retired Justice Mustafa Kombi had cried to high heavens, and so many of such learned justices, they have cried about the rot in the judiciary. But then it takes two to tango. I mean, while we try to, seek for sanitization of the judicial system at the level of the bench, there is also need to sanitize the judicial system at the level of the bar.
Is it possible
Yes.
for us to ask that you please take us through What are the key issues that are being raised in this reform that's being put forward? What are the key things so that we can take it one after the other?
The key issues, the holistic issue that the reform seeks to achieve is speedy dispensation of justice. That is the bus stop, call it that way, of what the reform seeks to achieve. Speedy dispensation of justice, which will also involve not just cleaning the audience table with respect to corruption, but also ensure that access to justice is not Herculean. It is extremely important that access to justice is not Herculean, so that some of those nitty-gritty that will make justice delivery expedient will also be affected. And then people will begin to have robust confidence in our judicial system. Because, and secondly, to abrogate some of the obnoxious laws in our statute books that seem to put some kind of cog in the wheel.
Would you say obnoxious or obsolete laws?
Some are obnoxious, some are obsolete. Obnoxious by the estimation of some practitioners, and are obsolete by the estimation of the society. Now, some of these laws are obsolete, and then there's need to bring them forward in tandem with the realities of the day. So, not just, like I said, holistically, speedy dispensation of justice. 2, access to justice devoid of unnecessary Herculean bottlenecks. And 3, ensure that once justice is delivered, for instance, that the facilities for detention, which generally is the prison facilities, that have been yearning for reform, is also touched. So that we're seeking towards moving our prison system from punitive system to reformatory and corrective system. As a matter of fact, prison is supposed to be a senior reformatory. You know, you at the lower level, when some juveniles offend the law, and then they have to be kept outside the system, they are kept in the reformatory. Then the prison is essentially supposed to be corrective, because even adults, when they behave in a manner that is harmful to the state, they need some form of corrective measures. Sociologists will tell you that, and psychologists will tell you that, for anybody to offend the law, something is wrong with the person's psychomotive makeup. So such a fellow needs some form of reformation, some form of correction.
Okay, the first one you gave was speedy dispensation of justice.
Of justice, yes.
Now, what are the things that make it impossible now for people who seek justice to get it speedily?
Some of the things that, make it impossible, well, let's look at the things that make it impossible. So that when those things are corrected, then it now becomes possible for dispensation of justice to be speedily assessed. One, our courts are congested.
So do we need more courts or what?
In some states we do. In some other states we need refurbishing of the court houses, and then we need more, and then that will holistically go into judicial financing of the judicial institution. But then if you talk of finance, I will tell you that every aspect of Nigerian system needs more finance. Yes, but imagine a situation where a judge sits in a court that does not even have single fan. And in a tropics like Nigeria, how long do you expect him to work in the courtroom? So that is one. 2, we need to, like the learned Chief Justice has started, continue the cleaning of the corruption in the judiciary, because that is one of the main problems that affect speedy dispensation of justice. 3, we need to also ensure that some of the laws that bring inhibition, in procedure, mainly this one is procedural laws, that will always accommodate unnecessary adjournments that were not, and that's why this LNSCJ said, any judge who does not deliver at least 3 judgments in a year, at least, 3 judgments in a year, has performed below level, below average. So, by the time more judgments are delivered, it will enhance the confidence of the people in the system. So, all those things that will ensure that judgments are delivered.
Is it possible
Yes.
that a judge will sit year in, year out and
Yes.
not deliver a single judgment?
It is possible that a judge can sit for 3 years without delivering a single judgment.
So what will they be discussing, or what will they be presenting to this judge that would mean every day
And when we
he
say
goes
judge,
to court?
in quote, we are using the general term judge. We wanted that to include magistrates. Right? And then judges of all cadre, from High Court to Supreme Court. And then don't forget the fact that there are also the judges of the customary courts. And then industrial court. These are other courts that generally, from what we see, some judges may not deliver a single judgment in 3 years.
What will stop a
What
judge
happens
from
is,
delivering judgments for 3 years?
Yes, of course it happens. It happens. When you have a judge that is lazy, in every human society, there are people who work hard, there are people who are lazy.
How did they find themselves at the bench if they're that lazy?
That is even part of the reform that this system seeks to achieve. The issue of appointment of judges. Some judges are appointed on the basis of man no man. Let me use that local terminology, man no man, on the basis of connection and networking, not on the basis of merit. If a judge is appointed on the basis of merit, naturally that judge must be a hardworking judge. There are so many of them that are hardworking, but then there are few that are lazy, who are not supposed to be on the bench. And when you find such people on the bench, they find it difficult to deliver judgment. They find it difficult to bring any trial, any case to logical conclusion and deliver judgment. And that is where you keep having adjournment of cases from time to time. Tell me, if a judge comes to court by 10 a.m. and then by 12 o'clock he seeks to rise, what kind of input would he have put in the system in 2 hours? And then by the time he rises, it's not as if he has risen to go and continue work elsewhere. He has abandoned the job of adjudication. And so these are the problems. And it takes the system to begin to flush out some of these lazy ones. And that is part of what the reform seeks to achieve.
Okay. Now, when you say that, it makes one wonder then, what is it that this proposal, this bill has in it that would make it such that it becomes impossible to have lazy judges not delivering judgment for 2-3 years? And what is it that would make it truly speedy to get delivery of justice in such a way that people can be reassured that if I take this case to court, it's not going to end up 8 years without judgment and eventually will just fizzle out? Because as they say, justice delayed is denied.
One of the important things that is needed is to set up in the system, within the system, an M&E, a monitoring and evaluation process